Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Taylor. We are back today with the Language of Life podcast. The Language of Life podcast is a podcast that focuses on life-changing stories, inspirational stories, stories that will encourage you and give you a direction or be a point of reference for you to find direction to move to the next place, the next level, and help you make the right decision for your life. Today, we have with us, I am humbled, I am excited. We have with us an awesome brother, an awesome gentleman, a successful individual. His name is Join Lullen. He is the managing executive of Marketplace Solutions at Tech Systems. I want to introduce to you all, present to others, Mr. Join Lullen. John, thank you so much for coming on the platform of the Language of Life podcast today. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you.
All right. We're glad that you're with us today. One of the things I've had the privilege of meeting John through several connections, but we talked earlier, I feel like I've known him for such a long time. He's such a warm person, easy to talk to, but very influential in the workplace. And you all are going to see this in this interview on the Language of Life podcast today. We have several questions that we want to ask John as we talk today, and he'll share with us and reach into his depth of knowledge and understanding and experience to help really give you direction and encourage you, and especially for those who are looking at the Language of Life podcast. And so we're going to start with that, John, with asking you a couple of questions. And some of these questions I want to ask you, John, number one, because you have such an impressive information that's out there about you. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't have the time to read all of the things that he's done, but to see his accomplishments, but yet to talk with him as an individual, very inspiring. Makes you feel comfortable when you're in his presence and when you're talking with him, to make it easy to have a good informational conversation. But John, I want to ask you some questions dealing with, a couple of things and how you got to where you are today and your work ethics. How did you get started in that of what you do? What was your path? What was your journey like to get to where you are today? How'd you get started?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know that I would end up doing the work that I'm doing when I first got started. My background is in sales. Like
Right.
prior to the organization I work for now, I'm talking door-to-door sales, network marketing, doing anything that I could, cutting hair in college, right? Like everything was sales focused. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Over time, I realized I wanted to add more value. I wanted to deliver a service that I felt personally was more meaningful. Like a haircut is great. That's important. But I wanted to deliver more to people, right? And I didn't want to sell a tangible product. So I shifted away from door-to-door sales, and I got introduced to the staffing and recruiting industry and technology services industry. This was probably about 14, 15 years ago when I got introduced to the industry, but I've been at this company now for almost 12 years. So, I started out as a technical recruiter. And when I first found out about what that was, I said no for two reasons. This was about 15 years ago. It was, I heard technical, didn't know anything about technology. I heard recruiter, and I thought that meant HR. So with those two things, no, I'm all set. Couple years passed, I ended up saying yes. I learned a little bit more, did a little bit more education, and realized that a technical recruiter is a salesperson that is helping someone with an extremely important part of their life, securing career opportunities, economic mobility, things of that nature. So I said yes, right? And the journey is, I'll kind of give you the expedited version, and I'm sure that you'll ask a couple of questions, is I was a technical recruiter, and this is all with Tech Systems, by the way. I was a technical recruiter for a couple of years. About 2 years, I think, on the head, actually. And then I moved into more of a client-facing role that we call an account manager. So I shifted from being the person, to give you an example, I shifted from being a sports agent, the one that's going out there identifying the positions, right, and helping my network of people secure employment. I shifted to then being the account manager, whose focus was to build relationships with current and prospective employers to understand what their business challenges were, right? What are they trying to do? What's their vision? What type of people do you need to hire? Then I would go back to my recruiting partners so that they could find the people to employ the right people to help our clients solve whatever challenges they had, right? So then I did that for 2 years. But when I got started in this industry and when I got started at this company, I was the only person on my team that looked like me, and that still exists in certain rooms today. There are times where I am the only or one of the few. So my point is, after being here for 4 years, I realized that I wanted to do more from a leadership perspective. I was fortunate to have a leader that I'm still close with to this day that did not look like me. Identifies as a cisgender white man, but he granted me access. It was actually two of them. They granted me access to their networks, which included people that looked like me that were in leadership in the company. So my eyes were open at that point. It's like, wow, I had never seen that before. And I knew that I wanted to embark on that leadership journey. And I was fortunate to get the development and the training that I needed to do so. So I then pivoted to leading our business operations in Albany, New York for a couple of years, and then in Stamford, Connecticut for a couple of years as well. And so I got here in 2013, right? So as an account manager around 2015, leading up to about 2020. So we're talking about account manager experience and business operations leadership. It was during that time where you asked me how I got started and what I'm doing now. That's where the shift started to happen, where, I knew that I never wanted to be a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner from an internal perspective. Because now that I've been on that sales journey and this customer engagement, delivering a service, helping people solve their problems as a strategic partner, I didn't want to lose that, but I wanted a healthy blend of, I'm always going to focus on diversity, equity, inclusion because of my own lived experiences, but I wanted to have that as a core function of my job. And I didn't know what shape that would take for all the reasons that I just shared with you. So in 2021-ish, our inclusion, diversity, and equity team shifted in a sense of we knew we needed more of a stronger and intentional focus on the marketplace component of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what we did was we stood up a team that was focused on workforce transformation and modernization, inclusion, culture, and workforce development, all from our inclusion, diversity, and equity team, right? With the core focus of we need to go out and create opportunity for people from historically marginalized populations while not excluding anyone regardless of how they identify, and while not sacrificing merit for diverse representation, but helping the industry recognize that that merit that they're seeking exists in all protected classes and various backgrounds. So once I found that out, it was kind of a say less moment for me, Paul, where my friends and mentors inside the organization, I told them that there's ever an opportunity to work with you in this capacity, please sign me up. And as we fast forward, I had an opportunity to interview and join the team in 2021 and officially started in Q1 of 2022. And I've been fortunate and blessed that since August, I've had the opportunity to actually lead the team. And my cup is full, Paul. This is it for me. This is what I want to do. Right off into the sunset.
That, you know what, John, man, I love your passion. And those that are watching, I hope you're really being inspired by the passion that you see and the energy and the focus that you have, John. One of the things that you already answered some of my questions already. One of the things, because with the work ethic that you have, that's moving you to a place where you're beginning to see some things happen. I love what you said, how you were introduced to other persons through a network of what's taking place and what you're doing. And I want to ask you, based on that, to be able to hit the ground running, who helped you or who inspired you when you were growing up for you to even now today be to use as a point of reference to help you develop in that work ethic that you have? Who was it that inspired you growing up during that time?
For sure. I mean, right away it was my parents. I'm thankful that they've always been together now for over 30 years. So just watching them, they always made it happen. I never knew how much money they had or we had. I knew we weren't poor. We lived in the suburbs. We didn't go on extravagant vacations and buy things that we didn't need, but we didn't want for anything. We always had what we needed. And regardless of what they might have been going through, As we do now that I'm a father and a husband. I know that life is
Yeah.
not easy.
Yeah.
And I never saw that from them, right? Like all I saw was optimism. They were very happy. They made it happen. They grinded. They worked hard, right? My mother was a phlebotomist. I mean, they're both
Mhm.
still here. My mother was a phlebotomist. She retired. My father was in sales, and then he
Mhm.
had a kind of a transition where he wanted to go from sales to doing a different line of work. So he shifted from being an international salesperson to being a cable
Mhm.
technician. And that was his passion. He loved it. It brought him home, less travel. So just seeing both of them always make it happen, that
Mhm.
inspired me. Um, and I guess secondary from that would be sports coaches, right? I grew up
Mhm.
playing basketball and football. I had an opportunity to play football in college. So my coaches, that's where the work ethic was from my parents.
Mhm.
The discipline in that
Mhm.
came from the sports coaches.
Wow, I love the way you put that together, man. Because and it sounds like it's so much balance, and you're able to pull from those resources to help you manage your your personal and public life, your family, home. You know, the balance there of how to manage and how to do things, but yet be that much more accessible to your wife and your children, man. That's awesome. I applaud you as being a leader, effective in your household, man, and what you
Thank you.
do. You know, I love the way you talked about that because it was leading to the next question. I was going to have you tell me a little bit about your journey, um, even as it's gotten to a place where I love how you flow with your communication. And one of the things I want to talk about is your journey on the public speaking platform and how all of this experience, all of what you do and all of what you've been able to do, how has that helped you and to be more effective in your communication skills as you begin to move forward? One of the things that I see that it talks about as a public speaker, your speeches have been geared to early talent development, mitigating biases, and AI and international strategies for DEI change management in the technology industry. How has that helped you to really reach and not only reach that, but be effective in what it is that you're saying in your level of communication on different platforms and different environments? How has that helped you with that?
Well, I gotta take a step back with that question, Paul, because and my wife, she'll attest to this. I'm an extrovert introvert, and I'm naturally
Wow.
shy. I'm naturally shy.
Really?
So yeah, 100%. And you know that for you to ask me a question about public speaking, if we rewind 3 years, I don't think anyone's ever asked me about public speaking. So for me, public speaking was running a team meeting internally,
Okay.
speaking to any of my internal peers. And my most recent leader, who I had the opportunity to backfill, who's still with the organization, has moved on to a different role.
Mhm.
Um, she is a close friend of mine as well, and she really pushed me off the ledge, really like out of the nest as a baby bird, so to speak.
Mhm.
Where I knew that that would be a component of this role that I'm in. I didn't know that it would be right away, like from the jump.
Mhm.
So this was early 2022. She said, "Hey, we're traveling to California, and we're going to be on stage." She said she's going to moderate a panel that I'm going to be one of the panelists, and we're going to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, early talent, being intentional with workforce development. I was like, "Oh, on stage? Like I just got on the team." She said, "Yes, public speaking, 100%. There's no question we're doing it." So it was that push where it was like, I have to at that moment.
Mhm. Right.
Very uncomfortable getting into it in terms of the preparation for it, right? Like it was butterflies like I used to get before a basketball or football game back in the day. And
Mhm.
it unlocked a superpower, honestly thought.
Mhm.
Like once
Mhm.
we got on stage, it was, oh, okay, I like this. And I didn't know that I would like this. And engaging and looking at the crowd. And when I'm in person, and even virtual, I'm big on, if I'm speaking, the my voice inflection, my peers or audience's voice inflection, their body language, and I kind of flow off of that, right?
Right.
And it unlocked that when she had me go do it. So then from there, it kind of just snowballed from conference to in-person panel to virtual panel. And my entire life, people have been lightheartedly making fun of me or poking jokes, making jokes because of the deepness of my voice. Like even since I was a child, my family
Right.
members would call. They would say, "Am I talking to Big John or Little John?" Because my voice is so deep. So my point is, people used to always say radio or podcasts. They would say I'm the all-state guy because of my voice. But once I got on stage, it's like, okay, I like this. Right. And yeah, literally. I felt that it was an opportunity for me to leverage that with everything that I'm doing internally and share that knowledge that I'm thankful that I have now acquired externally to impact various audiences. And that's something that I want to continue to do now, whether we're talking about an active or passive job seeker, whether it's a current client of mine or a prospective client or someone that is just curious about the importance of inclusion, culture, workforce development within the technology industry. I feel compelled to make that tie-in and help folks understand in various platforms that diversity, equity, inclusion is change management. It's change management is business transformation. The technology industry is embarking on a business transformation, and diversity, equity, and inclusion is a key component of that, right? So now that's something that I'm happy that I now have this public speaking platform to share that on a larger stage.
Right, right. And, with that, John, just listening to that, one of the things I love what you said, which again, I cannot tell that you are an introvert versus extrovert. One of the things that you said when you stepped on that stage, you said that, oh, this is what it's like. And I always say that people's level of expectation makes a demand on the skills and the capabilities that have been embedded within you. And when the two meet, it's just like it pulls something out of you. Like you said, that superpower. It's like it activates that, the switch is on. You shift into who you're supposed to be, what your destiny is, and how what you say, your voice and the tone of your voice commands the attention of people, and and it brings comfort too, man. It does.
Absolutely. And if I can, Paul, I want to shout out an organization that I call, I shouldn't say just me, my peers and I, we call corporate HBCU. It's ITSMF. I'm not sure how familiar you are. It's the Information Technology Senior Management Forum.
Got it.
And how I describe ITSMF is a cohort of senior leaders, senior Black technology leaders that have been in business for over 30 years that came together for access, opportunity, and upskilling from an executive presence perspective to build an organization that helps high performing, high potential Black leaders in the technology industry that are technology professionals or technology adjacent acquire the skills to continuously advance their career from a leadership perspective within the technology industry. So I say all that to say that I was fortunate to go through one of the many leadership development academies that they have for roughly a year long with 75 other brothers and sisters of mine now to this day. And that's where, aside from the story that I just shared back in 2022 in California when I had to go on stage, started to speak at the conferences, started to moderate panels and different conversations. And then when I got into this 10-month management academy via ITSMF, it was truly unlocked. It was like, okay, it's time to turn it up a notch a little bit. Because now we have to do capstone assignments and we have to speak and we have to write papers in front of C-suite and VP technology leaders for almost a year, right? And a lot of the feedback I got was, you need to do this more. You need to speak in whatever the platform is, if it's a conference, if it's moderating a conversation, if it's a podcast, if it's radio, whatever it is, just do it. And I want to take 30 seconds. Hopefully he watches this at some point. When you publish this, I can send it to him. But a friend of mine, Hosey Waters, that was in that program, he actually shared something with me that I still need to use, but he got me a podcast mic.
Hold that right there. Let's raise up just a little bit more. That's perfect. Awesome. You all write that down. Look at that. And we definitely, John,
we got me a podcast mic. Yeah, he got me a podcast mic because of how he felt I portrayed myself, projected my voice into various conversations. I wanted to leverage this platform to thank him for that, because it's something that I consistently think about is beyond what I'm doing inside of tech systems, which I love, fills my cup. but what else can I be doing outside of that with my voice? Again, podcasts, conferences, you name it. So I just want to take the opportunity while we were talking about public speaking to share that.
Awesome. Again, man, like I said, I love your spirit, man. Your passion, man, is so infectious, man, that it really motivates people, John, to move to the next place, and I can see you going even in more places and more on more platforms, really speaking and really articulating and bringing forth that of what people need to know. I love what you said, John, because you went into a process of where you went to training, you went to training sessions, and you got educated in this particular area as well. I always say the greatest teacher is one who remains teachable. And so therefore you're able to, and you have points of reference, you have places where you can go. And I think that's really important too. One of the questions I want to ask you, as I know we're moving to a close, John, we can talk all day, man, and you got to come back for part two. But I wanted
Absolutely.
to ask you a question. How can people get in touch with you and inquire of you to come and speak to them on a platform where they can present? Because I'm going to connect you with some folks in the workplace that I've already talked with them about you already. And so,
Appreciate it.
with what you're doing, John, with what I love what you're doing with the DEI. I'm definitely going to have you come and speak on that
For
on that
sure.
platform. So, but how can people, before I go to my next question, how can people get in touch with you, my friend, John Lullen? Where is it, a website, or what's the way that the best way that they can get in touch with you? Even hear some of maybe even your previous presentations that you've given as well. How can they get in touch with you on that?
LinkedIn is the easiest. First name, last name on LinkedIn. That
Mhm.
is the easiest. That's where I spend the bulk of my time in terms of leveraging the platform to put content out there related to what I'm doing. So yeah, that would be the easiest spot. I check my messages as often as I can,
Okay.
and I'm very active on the platform. So LinkedIn for sure.
Gotcha. LinkedIn, you all got it on LinkedIn. You can get John Lowen on LinkedIn. John, I want to ask you a question because on every level, on every area in which we move forward, there is some resistance that we're faced with on certain occasions. Have you ever experienced any pushback from management and corporate or in the workplace or in different circles when you're really presenting your message, your information, the information that you have to really instruct people, to educate people, to help them get information to move to the next place or to be able to implement the programs on what you're talking about that you've been successful. Have you ever experienced that? What advice would you give to
Yeah.
people, and how, and the advice that you give, how can you tell them how to continue to be proactive versus being reactive? What advice would you give when people experience pushback like that?
Absolutely. And clarifying question, DEI pushback specifically.
Correctly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying this, that I'm thankful everyone inside my organization knows how I feel about the organization, the work that I'm doing. And that's, like I said, I'm riding off into the sunset doing this work. But I'm so thankful to be inside of an organization that is doubling down on the importance of inclusion, diversity, equity, and workforce development. So I just want to start that and say that that we're doubling down. There is no pushback inside of our organization. We are moving forward with a full steam ahead, right? In the industry, my opinion and what I've seen and read in conversations that I've had is there is, unfortunately, Paul, misunderstanding and fear tied to what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually is. When I don't want to bucketize anyone, I want to be careful. When we lack understanding of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is and the power of it, we think right away race and gender. We lose sight of the varying backgrounds and differences. I was listening to a gentleman speak a couple years ago at a conference, and he said, raise your hand if you wear glasses and contacts. I wear contacts. I have an astigmatism. So everyone who had on glasses or was wearing contact lenses, we all raised our hands. And he was focusing on product inclusion and product equity. And what he said is, whether you self-identify this way or not, you are disabled. So you need equitable solutions. I wear blue light glasses at times. I'm always play with the dimness and darkness of my laptop and my phone and going on dark mode versus light mode and different things like that, that falls under accessibility for my vision.
Mhm.
Where I'm going with this is at times we don't think about, we as an industry, when I say we in this context, I'm talking about the technology industry. If we lack the understanding, we don't think of diversity, equity, and inclusion that way. We don't think about the fact that when we are focusing on large technology, like digital transformation, like artificial intelligence, that we have to focus on responsible AI. And we have to recognize that to mitigate biases in AI, just as one example, we need to incorporate diverse perspectives. We need a diverse and background and experience cohort of people building said algorithms for said AI tools and systems. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Um, if we know we need to put out a product in multiple languages and we need to hire people that are bilingual or multilingual in the technology industry, we're focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? If we want to create opportunity for folks that are transitioning from the military to support them with economic mobility and moving into the civilian world via the technology industry, and we're building specific upskilling programs for veterans and reservists, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I can give you examples like that all day, but I think my point is the pushback comes from, are we focusing on race and gender and pulling opportunities from other people? Absolutely not. As I said in the beginning, the pushback exists, but I think many organizations are still doubling down on the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, even if the language changes, the work and the mission stays the same, right? We're still continuously moving forward because it's extremely important, right? It's not going anywhere. Diversity is a fact, and it exists in so many different categories, right? It's something that it just is, right? It's not, oh, we don't want to focus on diversity. Well, that doesn't even make sense to say, right? The last thing I'll say is I go back to my focus that I said in the beginning is I myself, I don't identify as a diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner, a customer engagement business strategist, a sales leader that has diversity, equity, inclusion embedded in every single thing that I do to continuously add value to leaders within the technology industry. And my focus and my team's focus and my company's focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, we're never sacrificing merit for diverse representation. We're expanding and enhancing the candidate pool when we're focusing on workforce modernization and workforce transformation, because that merit that the industry is seeking, it exists in the broadest range of backgrounds. So that's our focus, right? We're going to create opportunity for folks from historically marginalized populations, because if I focus on myself and how I identify, the technology industry is 8% Black, and it's been roughly 7 to 8% Black for years now, when the Black American workforce in general, agnostic of the technology industry, is 13%. So it's not about pulling opportunities from anyone. And I want to be clear, this is not about just solely creating opportunity for the Black community. I'm talking about how I identify. If the numbers are stagnant, that means that we need to build more equitable solutions to create more opportunity and tap into different pools, different networks, different organizations, different regions to create more opportunity. That's all.
Wow. You know what, John, I have learned so much from just this interview today. And because I've learned so much, I know that the people that are listening are learning so much information and things that you're sharing. I couldn't have said it better how you expounded on that. Thank you so much for answering that question. Listening to you talk and listening to just so much information that you have relayed today, have you ever thought about, this is just a question, just a question, thought about writing a book or some type of way of really documenting this to where people can read what's coming out of you, what you've been able to discover, and how you can give direction? Have you ever thought about that? Or is that something that you feel, no, I don't want to go that direction. I like this better. You thought
I've
about
never,
that?
I've never thought about it, Paul. And when I think again, this work, right, this focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Right.
personal and professionally, that's just a part of my life. But the role that I just described and that core focus, I'll still say I've only been doing that specifically on this specific team for the last 3 years. And 3 years is a long time, but I'm looking at it as what's the story when I can say this is what I've been doing for 10 years and I've been in this industry for 20 years and I've been at this company for 20 years, right? That's where my mind goes, is looking at the changes and I'm not getting political, but multiple administrations, shifting landscapes within the technology industry, continuously evolving with the presence of AI and data centers and the chip makers and all of those things, right? That's where my mind goes, is I'm probably in chapter 2, um, right? So I'm collecting data, I'm banking it in my mind to see what is that going to look like in 2030. Ask me again in 2030.
Look, I'll be right there, and you got my support 100%. And I'm gonna stop right there. 30 years later, I'll see you, man. But I'm gonna be following you, man. Our friendship, it's amazing. This is our roads have crossed for whatever specific reason, but I still hear and I sense that there's the shaping and structuring taking place in you for what it is that you're pursuing to do. What the true destiny and all of this is, just they're just building blocks that are building who John Lullen really is and what his purpose is and why you're here, my friend. And I think
Absolutely.
it's gonna make real good sense. And I just want to be there to see it. Leave it.
I appreciate you. Well, listen, Paul, before we close, um, I want to give you your flowers and thank you, because how you and I met, we did not meet in the capacity of speaking on a podcast, right? We met professionally in a conversation just to get to know each other and talk strategy, and that landed us here. So it's an honor to be on this platform with you. This is an amazing platform. You know, I'm a big Apple fan, so I went right to Apple Podcasts and looked in. You are, the word that I want to use is you're grinding, right? Because I know hosting this podcast is not the only thing that you do, but I'm looking through to see, okay, how many episodes? Oh, December. And we're talking in December. Okay, November, October, September. It's nonstop where you're putting out good information. You're interviewing people. It's not even really an interview. It's having conversation and creating wonderful experiences for your audience on this podcast. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to share this space with you.
Oh, John, man, you're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. This is something like you. It's a passion. It's something I love to do, connect people and really celebrate. I love celebrating what people are doing that is positive, that's helping give direction. And you're one of you're a needle in the haystack, man. As busy as you are and the roles that you play and the responsibilities that you have to take time to come to the Language of Life podcast, man. This is an honor for me, man. I am humbled that you would even say that, man. Thank you so much, man. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from John Lullen. And John, before we go, I want to ask you a question, man, because I enjoyed this conversation. Would you be willing to come back again, man, and do a part 2 of
Absolutely,
this?
Paul. That's not even a question. Of course.
So, man, but my mom taught me, my mom and dad taught me, manners. I gotta ask. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it. John Lullen. Like I said, John, it feels like I have known you for longer than what we've known each other. And you're right. How it led to this platform. It's amazing. And it just shows you about the power of networking, about the power of connecting and meeting good people, and those who the young lady who has connected me to you as well. I love, John, when you did that shout out. I had an acronym. I hope that I have a couple seconds. It's called TOP, TOP. I like to play these word games. And so the letter T in the word top, TOP, what does the letter T mean to you? What does it stand out? And John, you probably saw me look down because I have a pen here. I'm writing notes. My friend, you have given so much information that has been so helpful to me, and I believe to other listeners that are listening too. But the letter T in the word top, what does that mean when you think about the letter T?
Time.
Time. I like that.
Time for me.
Time. And when you think about time, you think about kairos and chronos. I'm going back to my Greek classes, man. You measure time by calendar, but then you have in the fullness of time, seasonal, understanding. I always say this, know what season you're in and govern yourself accordingly. It's your time, but the time, the destiny, the destined time for you, man, 30 years later, I'll never forget that, John. 30 years later.
Not 30 years later, 2030.
Okay, 2030. I was
So at this point, basically 5 years.
5 years, 5 years. Okay, that number five. Okay, 5 years. I got you. 2030. Thank you for correcting me on that.
For sure.
Um, the le the letter O. What does the letter O mean for you?
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Opportunity. Okay, I got that. Utilize and seize the moment, seize the opportunity
Absolutely.
at that time. And then the letter P. What does the letter P mean for you?
Preparation.
Preparation. I love that.
As soon as you said top, in my mind, and that was not scripted. I did not know that's what you were about to say. But right when you said top and you said it was an acronym, it's like, oh, okay. Time, opportunity, and preparation. That's easy.
Look at that. Easy peasy, as I call it. Time, opportunity, and preparation. And with that time, opportunity, and preparation, as we close today, ladies and gentlemen, I always like to really, I think about college students. My son's in school right now, and he's in his second year. I have a good friend of mine who worked for Microsoft and interviewed with them, and he talked about how he was at the place where he had just graduated. He was closing out. He was in his dorm for a few couple of days. He had a job. He was going back home, but it wasn't the job that he really wanted. But he got a call. He got a call, and one of the places where he did the internship, they actually called him back to work there. But he said something to me that made me think about their other college students that have just graduated. They're at a place of decision. They're not sure what they really want to do. They didn't get the job, but they really want it right now. Those students that are about to make major changes, what would you tell that student that's at that place right now, that child, that boy, that girl that's about to make a life-changing decision, waiting for that job, pursuing that? What would you tell them after they got their degree? They
Yeah.
got their they got their masters. Some of them have gotten their doctorate. I mean, they worked hard. Like you said, they were on the grind. What would you tell them to encourage them, to keep them going, to give them direction? What would you say to a student like that?
To enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey.
Because what they're doing post graduation, maybe that's what they do forever. Maybe it's not. So enjoy the journey and all of the things that they are learning, all of the knowledge that they're acquiring, and the projects and programs, depending on what they're doing, that they have an opportunity to work on, the people that they have an opportunity to work with in that first job. My advice would be to not look at that as a bridge job, or I just graduated and I need money. But think about the relationship capital and the knowledge and whatever it is that they're doing, that they're gaining, that they could take with them in the future, because you never know what the future holds. The knowledge that I got from door-to-door sales, and in the past, I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and the skills that I gained doing those things, I still leverage today, right? I didn't look at that as I need money because I just graduated. It was, what am I learning now that I can take with me for the rest of my professional career? So enjoy the journey, embrace it, and consume that knowledge. Don't lose sight of it.
Wow. Enjoy the journey. Looking at the time, the opportunity, and the preparation is a part of the journey. Would you say so, John?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You only have so much time, and you got to be prepared for when that opportunity is.
Wow, I like that. I like that. Be prepared when an opportunity presents itself. And that is something, John, that I believe the listeners are going to listen to today and prepare. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it from Mr. John Lullen, father, businessman, leader, impactful person. And 5 more years in 2030, we're going to hear some more about this man.
Absolutely.
And what he's
Appreciate it.
doing. But more than anything, in the in between time, he's going to come back to the Language of Life podcast and really grace this platform with more information that's going to help us. John, you have been a tremendous inspiration to me. my friend, and I'm looking forward to our continued building our friendship and also this Language of Life podcast platform. You know, we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, on different platforms on iHeartRadio, uh, Play, FM, Podchaser, Boom Play, and so many more that we're on and we're sharing. And I want you all to just tap in, subscribe. This interview today at nighttime when John and I are asleep. This is still playing. And we want this to be informational for you and to direct you. John, once again, thank you, my friend. For those that are listening, I hope that you have been inspired, that you have been encouraged. And when John comes back, we're going to have more information for you. We're going to talk about specific things that help give you direction, that you will have a point of reference, college students. I want you to remember that where he talked about enjoy the journey. Sometimes we look back at our process. I always say, John, the process prepares you, amen, for the promise.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
process prepares you for the promise. And that journey, enjoy that journey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women. I want you to enjoy the journey. This is Paul Taylor with our guest, John Lullen, with the Language of Life podcast. We hope that you're encouraged, and we will see you next time on this platform. And we hope that this is making a difference in your life. See you next time, and take care. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Bye now.